Hi, I'm Andrew Rodriguez, and welcome to PsychoBible, babbling about psychology and theology. And back in early June, I was at a conference in southern New Jersey, the First Love Unbroken Surrender Conference. And one of the people there, I actually met a lot of interesting people, and one of them was the worship leader, John Fitzpatrick. And he reached out to me afterwards, wanted to chat a little bit, because we actually met prior to the conference in a podcast that never happened. So, so John, welcome. I want to give the quick anecdote. Brother Wolf, David Godwin, who ran the conference, he has his own podcast. He had us on. Leading up to the conference, he likes to interview the speakers that are going to be there, as well as the different musical artists that are going to be at the conference. And so he had us on together, and so we both got to meet that way ahead of time and share our stories. But then afterwards, we found out that the whole episode did not record. So there's maybe like a few seconds of it started recording. So something happened. So the interview, the podcast never actually aired. But we got to meet each other in advance, and then we got to meet each other in person at the First Love Unbroken conference. And you came to my breakout session, and just from our previously meeting, I know you have a really interesting story, a very powerful one of God's love, His mercy, and His grace. So I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit, and first, give us a little brief overview of who you are. What do you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's really a pleasure to be doing this with you. We did meet in a funny way, so this is technically take two of the
Yeah.
podcast. But although it's going to be the first one that anyone will see, so yeah, my name is John Fitzpatrick. I go by John Fitz or JJ Fitz because I have a long story that I'm sure we'll get into. But I play in a band called JJ Fitz, and it's a band, but also a ministry. And I'm a songwriter and in recovery for a long time now. And I write music about just how God has changed my heart and life. And I wrote, about the journey as I was getting sober, as I was going through trauma counseling. That's pretty much what most of my first album is. And still continue to write worship songs and just songs about the goodness of God and life in general, even struggles and pain, you name it. So yeah, the band JJ Fitz is a ministry, and we travel and we tell our stories. My son has his own very powerful story. And he's an amazing musician himself, and we just we tell our stories, and our mission statement, which is I like to say because it's so easy and it encapsulates what we do, but it's to bring gospel, hope, and healing to the wounded and addicted through music and testimony. And that
Mm-hmm.
really summarizes like who I am and what we do. So yeah, that's the nutshell version.
Yeah. Now you mentioned your son. I believe is he in the band with you?
Yeah, he is. He's a guitarist, vocalist, and a songwriter, producer. He records all the music. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
He's 27. Not that I'm dating myself, but yeah, he's 27.
Now, how long has the band been going?
So JJ Fitz has officially been JJ Fitz for almost 2 years, but we started a band called Fitz when I first wrote the first album. When I first got out of a program I was in, America's Keswick and Whiting. We started that probably, I want to say, about 5 years ago,
Okay.
but recorded our first like major album like 2 years ago. Truthfully, a little less than that, and now we're JJ Fitz, which technically stands for John and Jacob
Ah,
Fitzpatrick, JJ
okay.
Fitz. Yeah.
That's
So,
that's really interesting. Getting to work with your son, doing music
oh, it's
together.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I'll talk about it more later, but where we came from, where him and I were, and where we are
Mm.
now, and we're individually and together, it's absolutely amazing, you know? Yeah.
So I want to give you opportunity. Just mostly, I want to hear your story. So maybe set the stage for me a little bit. Where did you grow up, and your family of origin. Sort of set the scene for me.
Sure, absolutely. So, excuse me. So I grew up in North Jersey. Um, I'm in South Jersey now, but I grew up in North Jersey in the Jersey City area.
Okay.
It was predominantly my area was predominantly like a black and Spanish neighborhood. It was early '90s when hip hop culture was like soaring. So there was a lot of, I had a lot of struggles in the neighborhood itself, trying to fit in, et cetera, things like that.
Mm.
Um, but my home was largely the biggest problem. There was a lot of drama in my home. There was a whole lot of brokenness. whole lot of pain, just a lot of things going on, you know. Um, but yeah,
And
but
so
yeah,
you start with experimenting with substances at a young age then. What were the
yeah.
things you noticed? What were some of the outcomes within yourself that you're observing as you're growing older and you're having to just cope with everything that you're experiencing? Well, what was it that was the emotional toll that you're dealing with that
Yeah,
might have
so
led to alcohol and drugs?
yeah, I wouldn't have known it back then. Like I never ever it never crossed my mind that I was medicating pain. Like I never,
Mm,
that never even crossed my mind. But that's definitely what was happening, at a very young age. I had night terrors from the time I was probably 3
mm,
till I don't know, 6 years, 7, 8 years ago. All the time. 30 plus
wow.
years of horrible night terrors. And I never ever couldn't knew what they were about. It would just be these horrible, horrible dreams, and I'd wake up and I'd be in this horrible panic attack, and it would happen all the time, and it would
Mm,
take me a long time to come out of it, and I never ever understood why or like what I could never remember like what was the dream ever. Finally, my counselor, who I'll get into later, Melissa Smith, trauma counselor at America's Keswick, she pointed out that she said, well, when it happened, whatever this event was, you were too young to even know what was happening. So
yeah.
then when your brain processes it even now, your subconscious, when you're asleep, it's the same thing. You don't even know what's going on. And it's
Mm,
amazing like how that stamped me and stayed with me till I resolved trauma 30
yeah.
something years later, which it's amazing.
No, and
So
that's so important a point right there, which we'll get into a little bit more, but like so many times working with clients, adults who they come with the assumption, oh, but that's from my past. That there's no way that's relevant. Or
mm,
they'll default to criticizing themselves, like,
yeah.
oh, I should just
Hmm.
get over it. Like,
Yeah, I
come
was the
on, I'm
same
being a
way.
big baby.
Yeah.
Uh, and the reality is your brain doesn't know what
Nope.
age it is. When your brain is in trauma,
Yeah.
it's stuck there. Doesn't know. Doesn't know you've grown past it and that you should be over it. It just knows.
Yeah. It just is.
Yeah. There's a loss of a sense of time when
Yep.
there's traumatic experiences.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, your sisters took off as soon as they could. What
Hmm.
happened with you as you're getting older? Did you leave the home, or were you there longer than they were?
I stayed till I was 19, and I only left because I went into a rehab,
Okay.
and I wound up not really returning because that's a long story. But my drinking just got out of control. It was drinking, it
Hmm.
was pills, it was a whole bunch of things. It got really out of control. By then, I had met the girl that I would marry, and we were dating, but it was absolutely getting out of control, and I had to do something, and my family was just like, you got to go away to a rehab. So I wound up going to Brooklyn Teen Challenge
All right.
when I was 19. I stayed there for a year and a half, and when I came out of there, I had a pre-made family. I had a kid when I was in there because she was pregnant. So
Oh wow.
my son, my guitar player, was born. It's funny, right? you
And
know,
Jacob, you said his name is?
yeah. I couldn't find a good guitar player, so I just made one and waited. No, I'm kidding. I had a good guitar player. So, so yeah, I went into this program, um, and I was there for about a year and a half.
So
And when I,
maybe
yeah, go
for those
ahead.
who may not be familiar, can you explain a little bit Teen Challenge? What is it?
Yeah,
And how they do things there?
yeah. So Teen Challenge is a Christian drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. It's faith based, and I went to Brooklyn, and there was like an induction phase. I was there for like 6 months, and then they shipped me out to the mountain, which was in Rearsburg, Pennsylvania.
Yep, I'm familiar.
Yeah, and I was there for another 8 months. So I put in all in all, I put in like 14 and a half months in this program. And God bless them. I mean, I didn't know anything back then. I just thought that I was cured. But the thing
Mm,
is, man, I hadn't worked through anything. I just
mm,
memorized a whole bunch of Bible verses. Nobody talked about your past or what you'd been through. I think they didn't really even know to do that. Like they just thought, reprogramming in a sense. But the
hmm.
problem was we didn't deprogram anything. There was no internal
Yeah,
healing. So when I got out, I had the exact same issues. I was just trying not to drink. So I was
yeah.
I was white knuckling it without even knowing. I mean, I remember being so disappointed When I got out and 6 months later, I relapsed. I
Yeah.
was so disappointed. Like, I can't believe this. And then little did I know that was just the beginning, of my addiction. So,
Yeah, yeah. From what I know, they've made a lot of improvements, but for a long time, because I know a lot of people that went through Teen Challenge,
yeah.
so a lot of them ended up being my classmates at Valley Forge because a lot of times they graduate from Teen Challenge and they
Oh,
go
yeah.
to
We were very
Bible college.
connected. Yeah.
So, so yeah, and a lot of times the way they handled it was just pray, do a lot of spiritual disciplines, do more
Yeah.
chores, do more cleaning, do more yard work on the at the facilities there, and just spend more time in the Bible, just do more reading and
Yeah.
prayer time. And so the mentality is you just got to fill yourself up with God and get more of Him, and that will just sort of push out all this other stuff. That's sort of the mentality, and it's understandable that they would think that, but uh, it what we know now a little bit more is you need to actually go back to the things that
Yeah.
are at the root, open
Hmm.
those up so that the positive things you're doing will have more impact when you're more aware of the connection
Yeah.
that they have.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you this, though. The one good thing I really, really got out of there. I mean, God really used that place to keep me alive.
Mm,
If I'd have kept going at the rate I was going, I would have been dead. Like, I was really out of control. So
yeah.
it did, like, like bump me off the track in a sense, and it was like a somewhat of a restart or a detour that was much needed. But there was one thing very specific. I was 20 years old at this time. I'd been there for a while. I was up at the mountain, and somebody came in, and he did this. He was a songwriter, and he came in and he was playing music and telling his testimony, and he was an addict in recovery and a songwriter. He had an album and everything. His name was Glenn Clark, actually. And it was amazing to me. I'm just sitting there watching this guy. Now, mind you, I didn't play music, never sung a note in my life. I had
Mm,
no clue that I had any ability, like nothing. And I'm sitting there in awe of what this guy's doing. I'm just like, I'm in a trance. I'm like, this is crazy. I got to do this. Like, all I knew was like, I have to learn guitar. I want to just worship God. And like, so I asked my parents, will you send me a guitar? And they were like, absolutely. So they sent me a guitar. It was actually a Gibson, by the way. Whose first guitar is a Gibson? Yeah. I should
that's
have
not a
known at that
beginner's
point.
guitar.
No, it was like an omen. So they send the Gibson. I learned at a ridiculous rate. The other musicians around me were like, "This isn't even possible."
That's
Like,
shocking because I would have thought
yeah,
I didn't ask you about your musical background
yeah,
first, so it didn't really start until you were an
no.
adult.
I,
That's
I was I was
fascinating.
almost 21 when it started, and I picked up
Wow.
the guitar and I started playing. And my whole thing was, Lord, I just want to worship you. So I would just go into the woods and at Teen Challenge in the mountain. I would
Mm,
just sit in the woods, and I would just play guitar and worship and sing songs that I knew. I learned really fast, like I said. And all of a sudden, one day, I'm sitting out in the woods by myself intentionally. One, because I wanted to worship God alone. Two, because I didn't want anyone to hear me sing, because I had never sung in front of anyone. So this guy suddenly starts walking into the woods, and I see him, and he's got a suit on, and I'm like, oh no, there's like an office building about 100 feet away. I'm like, oh no, it was too loud. I'm gonna get in trouble. And this guy comes out, and as he gets closer, I realize he has tears in his eyes. And he says, "Hey, was that you? Just now singing?" And I'm like, oh, "No, it was the goat." Like, of course, it was me. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry." And he's like, "No, no." He's like, "When you were worshiping, he's like, the music just like the wind carried it into my office." He's like, and it just the spirit of God just hit me, and I was just crying, and it was this crazy experience for him. And
Mm.
then he says to me, "Our worship leader at the mountain is sick tonight. Would you be willing to lead worship tonight?" Now, mind you, I've never sung in front of everyone, never mind played with a band, and never mind sung in front of like almost 400 people. So I was like, it's so funny. I remember immediately being like, yes. And in my head, I'm like, why did you say yes? Like, and so I quickly backtracked and I was like, hey, just so you know, I've never played with a band. I don't even know if I could do this. He's like, all right, just meet with the band, see how it goes. So I go
Mm,
and meet with the band, and it just locked in. They were like, good, you're great, like as if you've done this 100 times.
mm,
So then the challenge was to then sing and lead worship. It was amazing. The night was
mm,
incredible. The Spirit of God moved. And after that, they made me the full-time worship leader. The other guy decided to back down for whatever reason.
mm,
So then I get home, if I could
mm.
jump into this, because this
Sure.
is part of that story. And I decided, all right, let me join my church worship team. It seems like the next phase, right? So
Mm.
the guy, John Polina, says to me, okay, no problem, but we're about to do a class. You're perfect timing because we're about to do a 6-week class, and that's for anybody who wants to be on the team. So I said, okay, cool. So I'll join the class. So I did a 6-week class, which is really kind of unheard of. Um, and on the 5th week, the assignment was you have to write a song and bring it back the 6th week. I have
Mm.
never in my life, to this day, heard of a worship team making you do that to join a worship team. And I
Mm.
remember thinking, like, write a song, like what? I never even thought about writing a song. I'm like, who writes a song? Like what? So I remember I went home. I'll never forget it. I had a tiny little apartment with me and my wife and my little son, Jacob, and we were like, I was like, okay, I got to go in the bedroom and write a song. Like I was like being like sarcastic. So I go in the bedroom and I'm in there for like a half hour. I come out in like a half hour with this dumb look on my face. I'm like, I think I just wrote a song. So I play the song. She starts crying. She's like, what
Mm.
just happened? And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then I bring it, and I play it for them and everyone. No offense on anyone, but most of the songs were like, to the tune of Mary Had a Little Lamb, or you know what I mean? Like, or just a
Mm-hmm.
poem or whatever. And I sing my song and I get bum rushed. They're like, dude, like, wow. Like, you got to keep writing songs. And that was the beginning. That's when I realized, like, okay, there's something here.
Mm.
Then I started a band. Yeah. So,
So were you full time doing band work, or
no,
is that like
no.
a side gig, or?
That was a side thing. It did get very serious. It did get very serious. I started playing in a band called Fleece, and I was the lead singer and songwriter. We recorded an album. We played Creation, if you know Creation
Oh yeah, yeah,
Festival.
yeah.
Yeah, we started winning every battle we did. We did actually pretty well. We started doing real well, getting really cool things. Played the Soul Fest, played with Matt Mayer, played with some amazing artists like opening up and things like that. And
Mm.
things started really progressing, but I was still struggling. I
Mm.
I started even working with famous producers, a guy named Troy Taylor. He was amazing. He found me at a church and asked me to come and work with him. And so I'm working with this. I'm 24 years old. I'm working with this famous producer. He's famous R&B producer actually, but I was still struggling, man, like hardcore. So I would
Mm.
put some days together, maybe a week or two, sometimes 2 weeks max, and then I would drink and I go on a 4-day bender, and then I
Mm.
would get up from it and I would start playing music and writing. It was just this constant cycle that I couldn't break. So finally, I just gave up on music. I was in
Mm.
IT. I was very successful. I was working in Manhattan. I was making very young man. I was making 6 figures. We had a house and cars and everything was great. And I just kind of gave up on the Christian music idea because I'm a mess. So I'm like, let me just go into the world and work.
Did anyone know? Was it a secret that you're struggling
Oh
with
no,
alcohol that bad?
it was impossible to keep that a secret. I mean, I
Mm.
would try to keep it a secret. I would drink behind closed doors. I'd put it in water bottles. I'd have this thing full of vodka. Like that was my go-to move.
Mm.
But it was, I would change so much. My wife would immediately know, and then it would become a thing, and then I'd be getting arrested, and I got TWIs, and yeah, it was kind of hard to
Yeah.
hide that.
So I'm curious then, with your own direct experience with alcohol while
Yeah.
touring and being in the Christian music industry for a period there, uh, what was their general attitude among other people involved in the music biz in the Christian world when it came
Truthfully,
to
man,
alcohol?
I didn't have as the that at length experience because I would always tank it before I got too far into like touring. I mean, we did travel, we did play, but the people that I traveled with, the bands that I was involved in,
Mm.
not really. They were doing it. They were really doing it. They were genuine Christians and
Mm.
doing their best and trying to love God and love their families and play music.
Okay. So
So
when you're like, yeah,
yeah.
people knew, it was almost like your family knew, but
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, my
So
bandmates knew. My
okay.
bandmates definitely knew. Yeah, oh, they absolutely knew. Because back then I got on pain management as well. I had a back injury, and during that time I was put on oxy and things like that for my back, which is where my story takes a dramatic turn.
Yeah.
But they knew about that as well. They were fully aware. But I would always pretend, and try to make it and dumb it down or make light of it. Oh, I got a
Okay.
bad back, which I did. I mean, there was
Hmm.
times I couldn't even barely for almost 2 years I could barely walk. So we played Creation, and as soon as we get off the stage, I'm walking around with canes, like to hold myself up. Like that's how bad it was. So I could easily use that and be like, oh, I need this. But truth be told, I didn't
So
need to
even
decide the
some of the
level I
people
was
who
taking.
knew, it sounds like what they would come to you with some concerns or
Oh,
point
all
things
the
out.
time, all the
Okay.
time. It would cause fights in the band. Yeah, it actually almost went to blows a couple times, like because
Mm.
arguments and guys getting mad, and then me being drunk and that just not going over well. Thankfully, I didn't really play any shows like that, or I never. I was always sober when I was actually playing. You know what I mean? But again, that's why I wound up giving up, man, because I was just like, I
Yeah.
can't. I'm just such a double life, and I can't. You know.
So what year, timeline wise, what year is this when you gave it up? And also when you had the back injury, so what year is this going back?
So I was when I well, I always had an injury since I was younger, but it got much worse when I was about 26.
Huh.
I took a fall. So 26 is when I first got put on pain management,
Okay.
and that just escalated and progressed, and got a really good job, had good insurance, went to pain management doctors, and back then things were very different. Like I was on massive amounts. They wouldn't even give probably 10 people what I had,
Mm.
monthly. It was just ridiculous. Um, and that went on from age 26 to 34 is when I was on pain management. And yeah, it started to cost me. I would be nodding out at my job. Like I said, I'd pretty much given up on music. I wasn't leading worship anymore. I'd be nodding out at work. I'm an executive in New York City, and I'm falling asleep in meetings in front of the CTO, and I'm in IT. So, yeah, and finally wound up getting let go. So I went from making
Mm.
$120,000 a year to at age 29 or early 30s,
Hmm.
um, to unemployment. That didn't go over well.
Wow. Yeah, what a drastic change.
Oh yeah, it was tough, which sent me into a clinical depression. I know now. I literally was on a couch for an entire year,
Hmm.
fighting to try to stay sober, but unfortunately didn't have much luck there.
So how was your family? Like your wife, kid? How many children do you have?
I have two.
Okay.
Yeah, Jacob is 27, Samantha's 21. I have two
Okay.
kids. Yeah.
So during that whole period, you're dealing with pain management, you lose your
Yeah.
job, you're going through the depression. What do you recall as far as how they were handling everything at that time?
Not so good. I mean that that year was actually extremely tough. I mean, even when I was working and things were okay, like from the outside perspective, they weren't okay because I was very disconnected emotionally. I was numb. I was on like ridiculous amounts of pain medicine. So I
Hmm.
was very numb. And there were some incidences like when I was 34 towards the end. Um, I I hadn't drank in about a year because I was on pain management, so I'm high all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah.
To me, it was the answer to alcohol. I was like, oh, I got this thing. I don't got to drink anymore, which was crazy. But then one night I wound up drinking, and I hadn't, like I said, I hadn't drank in a long time, and I mixed that with I was taking like Xanax and tranquilizers, things like that, plus pain medicine, OxyContin and oxycodone, and I mixed all these things together, and I wound up having some kind of mental break, and I took a utility knife and I just slit my wrist,
Hmm.
and I did it unfortunately in front of my wife and my
Hmm.
son. My son was downstairs in the basement. My daughter was in the other room. Poor girl was 9 years old,
Hmm.
and I didn't know this, but she was looking through the keyhole. It was an older home, and she watched the whole thing, and she
Hmm.
sees blood squirting everywhere, and my wife absolutely has a panic attack, and she's freaking out and doesn't know what to do, and she runs out and calls 911, and so things like that, were absolutely horrible. And then I got arrested a couple times, and it was really tough on the family. And of course, we were arguing, and then I'm not working because I'm depressed, and I'm not even looking for work because I'm paralyzed, in fear and addiction.
Hmm.
And it was really really bad. We would separate, we would get back together, we would separate, get back together. I think we did this 4 or 5 times. Yeah.
How long a period of time is this?
Oof. Which piece?
Well, this whole period of separating back and forth,
I
and
mean,
the
truthfully, the separating started when I was, early 20s, 25, 26,
hmm.
probably was the first time we separated. So from then up until 35, which is when we finally separated, we probably separated 5, 6 times. One time was for 2 years. Like
Hmm.
one time was a year. During this, we would still talk though. Her and I were kind of cool. She was just afraid to be in the house with me, unfortunately,
Oh,
because I
wow.
was so unstable. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what
So,
happened?
so when I slit my wrist at age 34, I wound up getting locked up in a psych ward. And while in there, they had to call my pain management doctor to send in my pain medicine because I was withdrawing. So he did. He sent in my pain meds. So while I was there, I was stable. So when I got out, um, I went to get a refill, and he knew what happened because he had all the records, and he said I can't give you pain medicine anymore. So he completely cuts me off.
Mm,
So I went into like an instant, hardcore, crazy withdrawal. Something I had never experienced at that level. Extremely sick, and an old friend of mine told me, "Hey man, heroin's the exact same thing.
mm,
You can get it so easily. I can go with you right now." He was a heroin addict. And I remember I said to him, "Man, you're crazy, bro. There's no way. There's no way I'll do heroin. I'm a Christian. I'm a songwriter. I'm an executive. Like I'll never do heroin. I got family, wife, kids." Well, sure enough, the next day when it got really, really bad, and I
mm,
wound up drinking a little bit to try to take the edge off, I called him. I said, "Dude, let's do it." And that was the first time I ever did heroin. I was 34 years old, and
mm,
that was the beginning of the end. That didn't last very long, that phase of it, because my wife found out. We were back together at this time, and she
mm,
found out that I was using heroin, and she said, "John, this is it. Like, you can't do this in the house," and rightfully so. Like,
yeah.
she should have done that. And
Mm,
I remember how devastated I was, because man, the crazy part is like I wanted to stop. I wanted my family to work. Like I loved my family. I loved my wife. I loved my kids. Like, when things were good, things were good. Unfortunately, they
yeah.
didn't stay that way for long. But I wound up leaving because she said, "If you don't leave, I'm taking the kids and we're leaving." And I didn't want my kids to uproot from the house. So I had gotten a job at that time back in IT, and I wound up just like getting a room in Connecticut, which is actually where the job was. And I stayed there for a while, renting this room. Sure enough, fast forward a year, I lost that job because of drugs,
Mm,
and they let me go. And then I wind up going into a program, and then I get out of the program, and then I'm using heroin, back
mm,
and forth. This happened 3 or 4 times. By
wow.
this, yeah, and this time she's like totally done with me because I wouldn't stay sober. I couldn't. To her, it was like you're choosing this over us, and
Mm-hmm.
I would feel the pain of that because it's like, man, I guess I am. You know what I mean? But my chooser was extremely broken. I wanted to stop, but how do you explain that to someone? I want to stop,
Mm-hmm.
but I keep doing this. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a good look. So, finally, in the end, man, I wound up getting thrown out of another sober home that I'm in and out of sober homes, lost
Mm,
another job, and I wind up living in a shelter, homeless in Paterson, New Jersey for 2 years. And that's when my addiction just went through the roof, man.
wow.
For 2 years, I started using needles. I shot massive amounts of heroin. And it just got really, really bad. I almost died more times than I can count. I've been in and out of hospitals constantly. I almost lost my left arm because of an infection from a needle.
Mm,
Um, it was just really bad, man. And I couldn't see any way out of it. But, long story short, fast forward a little bit, my nephew, um, my nephew Jordan, he was 21 years old. He was in recovery like me, very young,
mm,
21. And he relapses while in a sober home. He does like 1 or 2 bags and it kills him.
uh,
Yeah. So I'll never forget when I got the news. I was driving, and of course I think I had just gotten drugs, and I'm driving, and my mom called me and told me, and I'm punching my steering wheel, freaking out, and I'm just like, okay, this is horrible. And I wind up going to his funeral. And of course, man, I'm a heroin addict, so like I have you don't have a choice but to use. Like you can't just be like, I'm not using today. That's not how it works. So
mm-hmm.
you get extremely sick. So I use as little as I could, and I go to his funeral, and I'm standing over his casket. My whole family's there. It's August, right? And I have long sleeve shirts on because I'm trying to cover all my horrible track marks. My arms were a disaster. My whole body was, truthfully, my neck, my chest. It was really bad.
Mm,
And I go there and I'm standing over his casket, and I know now that this was God. I had this intense moment of clarity. I looked at him, and for the first time, it just like washed over me, man. I was like, I am going to die. It wasn't like I might die, I could die, like this is not a good idea. It was like I am
Mm-hmm.
going to die, and I'm going to leave my kids without a father, and that's it. And I just absolutely knew it. Like, and I called my brother-in-law, Jairo Daza, who is a pastor and also works in addiction and counseling and all that. He's starting a program, and he had actually taken me in multiple times trying to help me in a program he had. He had different programs over the years,
Mm.
and he got me into a place called Straight and Narrow in Patterson.
Okay.
And yeah, it's an addiction recovery program, not Christian, just a regular program. So I go in there, and I really want to stop, man, but I used literally to the door, like literally, like I used right before I went in. Truthfully, I even snuck some in and used it in the place, and then started going through the withdrawal process, which was absolutely horrible. I was on massive amounts of fentanyl. It was a horrible withdrawal. It took like 30, 40 days. It was really bad. They kept sending me to the hospital because I was so sick. I couldn't eat.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
weeks on end. I couldn't eat. I lost crazy amounts of weight.
I mean, heroin's notorious for being the worst with
Yeah, I
withdrawals.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think fentanyl is even worse, to be honest. It's really
Mm.
bad, but it's very similar. But so yeah,
Yeah.
terrible. And but I started to feel better. I'm there like a month now, and my roommates in the place start bringing in drugs. And yeah, they're talking about different things, and they're bringing in little stuff here and there, and guys start like overdosing in the program, and I'm just like, okay,
Mm.
I'm gonna die. Like I'm gonna die. So
Mm.
I knew that there's no way I was gonna stay sober if everyone's using heroin. Like not everyone, but people were. And I wound up calling my sponsor, Chuck, actually, and he was like, dude, I know about this place called America's Keswick in Whiting, New Jersey. Now, mind you, he knew I was a Christian. I said, all right, man, whatever. Like I'm at the place of like, whatever you say, bro. So my mom offers to put up the $500, which is literally all it costs to get in.
Mm.
It's like an induction fee, I guess, to make sure you're serious. And
Yeah, yeah.
then donors pay for the rest.
Wow.
So I go to this place, and as soon as I got there, I knew it was nothing like I had ever experienced.
Mm.
It was literally like a resort. It was a huge complex. There's a sauna, there's a pool, there's tennis racket courts and basketball, and it's a Christian program, and there's this church and Bible study, just all this stuff. But
Mm.
they offered other very deep things that I'll get into. But but yeah, so I went there, and that was the beginning of the rest of my life. Yeah.
Wow. Get into it then. Yeah, what
Sure.
happened in
Yeah.
there? Because
So
like I know when we were talking before, you had to give like the abbreviated version of your story, where it's like, well, pain management led to one thing, which led them
yeah.
to heroin, etc., and then I had to go into recovery.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned previously at the conference that uh, as you started to do the work, you realized no, there's more to it than just I
Exactly.
got hooked on painkillers because of
Yeah.
back pain.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Um, so I'm at Keswick now for a few months, and I'm already starting to do pretty well. But I'm in a group with my group leader, the Dr. Noah Lang, and um, I'm just sharing some stuff, and he would listen, and then one day he says to me, he's like, "Hey, man, just from some of the things you heard me say," he said, "We offer this thing called trauma counseling. If you're interested." I had never heard of trauma counseling, nor
mm,
had it even crossed my mind because I had never heard it, never thought it, that
mm,
there was something driving my addiction. Like, I thought it was a choice thing and a will thing and a white knuckling thing or whatever,
yeah,
or
yeah,
obviously I'd heard of the steps and I'd put some work in there, but it never occurred to me like if you resolve certain things from the past, wounds, that your life can change. So
mm-hmm,
I was in the place of like, okay, whatever you say, I'll do it. That's where I was at, thankfully. And I did. I started doing trauma counseling, and that was the beginning of a year and a half journey where I did intense trauma counseling. I stayed on there. I went into what they call the discipleship program. I was there for like 10 months doing that. I got extension after extension, partly because I really wanted to continue in the trauma counseling. Um, and then I stayed on as an intern to work there. So again, so I can continue it even further.
mm,
So I did intense trauma counseling for a year and a half, and it was really just, um, you would process through sources, they called it. It's a model from a lady called Denise Colson. She wrote the model,
mm,
and excuse me. And you would just you would process through events. You would like relive them in a sense. And as a result of doing that in a room with people that you trust, it was actually a small group, which actually wound up being amazing. And you would reprocess those events and you would feel the pain of the thing that happened. Things I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even remember, Andrew. Like they were gone from my mind, but they would come up as I was going. It's a very spirit led thing. It was very much a
Yeah.
Christian thing, but it was
What's
also
the
using,
what's the
go
way
ahead.
of reprocessing? How like
Yeah.
was it through psychodrama? Was it through intense prayer ministry?
It
What's
was
what's the
writing.
writing?
Primarily it was
Okay.
writing, and it would be
Okay.
writing as if you are in the moment. It would be like
Okay.
you came into the room, you had a red shirt on, you know, you said this
Mm.
to me, I felt this way, I tried to do this, but it did, like stuff like that. And then this thing
Okay.
happened. So it's very much describing through detailed writing and reliving the event in a sense.
Okay.
And then there would be questions like, what are you feeling? And you would sit quietly and let all the feelings come out, which in the
Yeah.
beginning, it was only anger. I'd be angry or afraid. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got deeper, I would realize things like I feel hurt. I feel rejected.
Yeah.
I feel unwanted. Like I feel disconnected. Like I started to really go deeper. Feelings to me, man. I remember when they first handed me, they said to me in the beginning, what are you feeling? And I remember thinking, like, what am I feeling? What are you feeling? I don't know. I'm angry. What, like things like that were not part of my vocabulary nor my life. They weren't part of my
Yeah.
skill set, which should be part of a healthy human experience. But
Yeah.
unfortunately,
It's one of
it's
the most
not.
basic things I have to teach clients all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
What just some I got clients who when I'll ask them like we go into a memory, what are you feeling right now as you remember that? And some of them they have to like type in their computer. They're looking up the sources and they're looking up dictionary words for different emotions.
Yeah.
They have no emotional vocabulary.
Yeah. I didn't. I was the same exact way. And that, I'll tell you what, man, that changed. Like over a process, I began to have to get really in touch with what was going on inside of me. And that's where self awareness for the first time in my life became a thing.
Hmm.
And then because I was in this group with others who were doing the same thing, empathy started to grow,
Yeah.
compassion, all these like necessary human traits that I never had.
But yeah, that's why so often why a counselor of some sort is needed, whether it's a professional counselor or a
Yeah.
pastor, a mentor, because if your parents aren't doing that with you, of asking you, how are you feeling? And they're
Hmm.
reflecting back what you share,
Hmm.
non-judgmentally, they're just showing that they're listening and they're reflecting back. We don't develop what we call a self-reflective function, the
Yeah.
ability for us to look inward and notice without judging and just to
Yeah.
describe and feel what we
Without
feel.
judging. So key.
Yeah. So it needs to be integrated. It needs to be like internalized
Hmm.
from the parents doing that. And if we don't
Yeah.
get that, then it's like you need someone else later to help you do that later because you're not just going to be able to figure it out
Yeah.
on your own.
No. No, and I definitely didn't. And man, I didn't, like I said, I didn't even know it was a thing or a need. Like I thought my problem was drugs and alcohol.
Hmm.
Man, I couldn't have been more wrong. Drugs and alcohol were my solution to a problem
Yes.
that I had, many problems, you
Yeah.
know? It radically changed my life. And I remember about 6 months into the counseling, something happened with someone, a staff member there, and he snapped on me and like freaked out on me. And I reacted so differently than I normally
Mm.
would have. And I wasn't trying to, I just did. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, I'm changing. Like I'm
Yeah.
actually changing. Like I'm healing. And that was like all I needed to keep going. Because it was
Hmm.
hard, man. There were times I'm writing these things and I'm like, this is so stupid. Why am I reliving this dumb thing, this horrible thing? I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to think about this. Like it felt so, I'd want to throw the book. Be like, this is so, I'd get angry. You know what I mean? This is all these emotions that I didn't know how to handle were kicking up,
Yep.
that I had never handled because I had never processed or grieved anything successfully in my entire life up
Yeah.
until that age. And yeah, man, I started to heal. Yeah,
The reality is you were feeling those emotions all your life, but
exactly.
you weren't
Hmm.
aware of how you're feeling them. And when you start introducing alcohol and
Exactly.
drugs, it's especially like people go to a certain drug for a certain reason. What does alcohol do? It's a depressant.
Hmm.
It
Numbs you.
it numbs out and it depresses those emotions that are too overwhelming
Hmm.
for you. So you're
Yeah.
not going to develop your awareness of how you feel when your major way of coping was suppressing it through alcohol.
That was it.
and then painkillers to numb you out more. And it's really
So
interesting when you point out that it's that moment where you notice I reacted differently and you didn't have to try. That's one of the signs of
yeah,
transformation actually occurring, where it didn't
yeah,
doesn't take conscious effort to respond differently anymore.
yeah.
That's where you know you've been getting more to the root issue,
Hmm.
where now it doesn't take this effort to be different in how you react to something. Where
Yeah.
there's a cue where if someone would have, however he snapped at you, I imagine that would have been reminiscent of ways that your dad might have yelled at you,
Oh,
or
100%. That's exactly what it was reminiscent of. Yeah.
so there's what we call a cue that would have been a trigger for the past way of acting. And so when you are presented with a cue and you respond differently without even having to try,
Hmm.
there's a clear sign of the transformation occurring.
Yeah.
And then you said something else that really stood out there, that that's when you knew I'm making progress, I'm going to keep going. And so it
Hmm.
reminds me of what Paul says in Romans 5, how we have this hope of glory, and it's a hope that doesn't disappoint us.
Hmm.
It's because God gives us a taste of who we're becoming, of us becoming like Christ. And so as we notice a change, then we're like, ah, I have something I can like actually point to as evidence
Yeah.
that I'm changing into the likeness of Christ. And that
Hmm.
spurs us on even more. So it's not just, well, if I keep doing this, I'll hopefully get better.
Hmm.
Uh, you need to see the markers of
Yep.
transformation and change. And that's where it ignites your hope, because the hope that we get from God is a hope that doesn't disappoint us.
Yeah.
It's not just wishful thinking. It's like,
Yeah.
here's evidence that you're actually becoming the image of God restored again within you, and the likeness of Christ is being developed in you.
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah.
yeah, keep. How long was this period? You were in
So
the program there.
So I was there for 2 years. The counseling lasted a little over a year and a half.
Okay.
And again, that's again because there was a lot of trauma and because it was working. So I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave any stone unturned.
Of course.
Even though I knew it was impossible that everything's going to happen in a year and a half. Like I wanted to hit all like the main points. So which was also tough, man, because it caused me to have to bring up things that were like shameful. Like to me, they were shameful. Like I don't
Mm,
want to talk about this. Like this is embarrassing. Like I'm in a group of guys, and one of the counselors was a girl. It was a girl and a guy. It was Dr. Noah Lang and Melissa Smith, and it was almost like a mother father figure, which was kind of amazing because I needed that. Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I I just it was hard. Like some of it was very dark and it was some of it was things that I was party to. So it was like I don't want to talk about this, but I knew that if I didn't, I wasn't going to heal. And I couldn't chance
Mm,
it. And by that point, thank God, I had trusted the people in the room. So I began to bring up like things that I was just even bullying that had happened to me when I was younger. I was very bullied.
mm,
And some of those things were really hard to talk about, like things that happened to me, things that I allowed. So yeah, man, I went all in and over time and yeah, it lasted like I said about a year and a half and yeah, it changed me. The other piece of it that I hadn't mentioned was during this time, for the first time ever, I picked up the guitar again
mm,
during this process. And man, because I was getting so in touch with my feelings, for the first time in my life, I became like a prolific songwriter. And I was just
mm.
writing constantly. Like
Yeah.
never had I ever done like that before. Um, and I just was writing, 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 and I was using writing as a new coping mechanism. I was
Mm,
it was helping me process through things. I was writing, I wrote songs. I wrote a song called See You in My Dreams, which is about my divorce. I wrote about my
mm,
strained relationship with my daughter.
I remember when you were younger and wanted my time, but I couldn't be bothered now. I'd give anything to go back again. Finally I'm here, but only to find as time moved along, so did your life. Now you're grown and I'm still here alone. I didn't mean to break your heart.
wrote about a lot of the things I've been through, the brokenness of my father. Like I've written about so much, and that's where the album then it came from that, which is so
There you
cool.
go.
Such
Yeah.
substance to it. You know what I mean?
What then? Like how you see the changes in you? How was it then having an impact in your relationships and other aspects of your life from that point forward?
This is my favorite part of the story. So me and my ex-wife, who are very good friends now, by the way, like very, very close, oddly close. She hated me. I put her through some terrible things. Destroyed our family. It was all obviously, largely because of me and my decisions and things of my brokenness. So that was horribly strained. My son hated me pretty much because I had stolen one of my son's guitars in addiction and I sold it and I lied to him, made up this story about someone stealing it, and it was all nonsense. I had borrowed it and then sold it. And so in essence, I stole his guitar and sold it for drug money.
Yeah.
And he was just furious at me, but he kind of tried to bury it a little bit. And, our relationship starts getting restored and we start talking through some things. And we were actually staying in a hotel. We were playing somewhere and we were in a hotel together, and the band had started by that time. And he said to me, "I need to ask you a question." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Did you sell my guitar?" And I just put my head down and I was like, "I did." I will never forget this moment. He was absolutely furious at me, but he let it out. He didn't like try to hide it. He was like, "I'm furious," and we struggled through that together and we talked through it. Excuse me, I got a little cold going on. And we talked through it, and that wound up beginning to heal, but there was still a lot there. But then as I am now out of the program and doing better and building relationships with my ex-wife, and building relationship with my son again, my ex-wife and I start to notice that he's not doing so well, not with drugs and stuff like that, but getting very secluded, going into himself, and it was just very apparent that there was a shift in him. So I didn't realize how bad, and neither did she, how bad it was. But one day she said to me, "John, I need you to come here. We got to talk to him and just sit down with him and talk to him because I'm concerned." So I had, at this time, this is such a God thing, I had just bought him, without him knowing, a super expensive guitar that was so much better than what I had sold. It was a Fender Telecaster. And so I show up there and I'd like, "All right, cool. I'll kill two birds with one stone here." And I brought the guitar and hid it behind the couch, and he comes up and we start talking to him. And by then he had seen the dramatic change in me. Like he knew like how I was and then and how I am now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not just drugs and alcohol gone, but just a different person, like emotionally healthier, like massively. So, he saw that and knew that and kind of wanted that in a sense. And we start talking and he starts opening up, and we find out that he is suicidal, and not only suicidal, but he's planning it. And yeah, he's getting ready to buy a gun and go into the woods, and he was ready to go, and but here's the part we didn't know. The night before, not even 12 hours earlier, he prayed to God for the first time in probably forever and said, "God, if you don't step in, I'm doing this. I'm taking my life. If you do not step in, this is happening." Well, less than 12 hours later, I'm on the couch with my ex-wife, having an intervention with my son. And he just breaks it because he remembers that as he's sitting there, and he realizes this is a God thing. And he breaks down and he's crying and he just totally opens up and shares his heart. And it was a beautiful moment. And I just suddenly felt led to say, "Jake, you can do what I did. You can go to Keswick. Like you can go through the same counseling. Like you can do it. Like, look what God did in my life." And he was just like, of course, part of him was like, "Oh," but dude, he agreed in that meeting, and him and I are crying and talking. And it was just really a very hard time, but a very beautiful time. And then I'm like, "Dude, I got to tell you one other thing. Like, I got you something." And it was just such like the perfect icing to the cake. And I
Yeah.
reach behind the couch and I pull out this case and he opens it and he's just like, no, you didn't. And he breaks down crying and I'm crying. And it was just like, it was such a beautiful, like healing
Wow.
moment. You know what I mean? And then he does, man. He goes in and God totally rocks this kid's world, heals his heart, changes his life. And now it's been years and he's just doing amazing. Like he's doing so good. He's 27 years old. He is light years beyond where I was. Emotionally healthy, self-aware, helps people navigate through things, even me sometimes. So
It just
yeah,
highlights
man.
so much the importance of doing your own work because it's not just about you. You don't know the
Exactly.
impact you work on yourself will have on
Yep,
whether it's your own family, your kids, just people you
absolutely.
encounter.
And what's so cool, man, the guys that I was in that room with doing that trauma counseling, I mean, you can't make this up, man. And I didn't see this coming. They're all my best friends to this day.
Hmm.
We talk. I was just with them, the other one 2 days ago. I'm with the other one on Saturday for breakfast. Like we're
Hmm.
texting all day long. We are the best of best friends, and we're doing life together, man. I had nothing and literally nothing. I sold everything I owned, so I had
Mm-hmm.
nothing when I was homeless and went into Keswick. Literally nothing, um, and and I had no one. Like everybody hated me. I had no friends.
Hmm.
And now I have like my life is too full. Like if somebody wants to be my friend now, I have to figure out how we're gonna make it work. Because I got my life is so full now. Like
Hmm.
it's just so cool, man. So yeah, relationships, that's like my favorite part, you know? Yeah.
What is the quality of those friendships too? If you could just maybe dig into that a little bit, what's the difference in the way you guys interact than what you grew up with?
I don't think I really knew what a real healthy friendship was, to be honest with you. I mean, they're meaningful, they're deep, they're real. They're real, my
Mm-hmm.
friendships. There's no sweeping stuff under the rug. Like if one of them is upset with me or I'm upset with them, you bet we're going to talk about it. Like
Yeah.
we're going to have a healthy conversation. Maybe one of us is going to get angry, maybe both of us, but we're going to resolve it and we're going to be stronger tomorrow as friends. That's another beauty about the friendships I have now. They were forged in a fire, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I was going through trauma counseling, me and one of the guys, his name is James, not to out him, but I won't say his last name, but he was with me in the process and we were actually working together on the complex during that time. We would fight like cats and dogs because we were triggered all the time because we were going
Mm-hmm.
through this deep stuff. So we
Yeah.
would live like in a triggered state at some regard sometimes and we'd be fighting and going through stuff and we realized later on like wow man that's what made us so close. Like
Mm-hmm.
learn now we like never fight because we've learned each other so well and the boundaries are now established and respected. Which boundary, bro? I would have thought that was like a fence when I was younger. I know a boundary mean like when they put tape up somewhere. Like I didn't know what that was. There were no boundaries in my home. You
No.
know, zero. Yeah, no. So yeah, man.
Yeah, because this is so much a thing that we're lacking. I mean, I think historically it's been an issue. That I just think part of the male experience is there's such a propensity for us to find our value and our worth and how much we can do on our own that it does take some uh social reinforcement to kind of move past that and to realize how much we need each other.
Mm,
So other more primitive cultures, they have like rites of passage. You have more segregation between men and women. So the men learn they have to be with each other.
yeah.
They go out in hunting parties. They go out in different things where they have concentrated times of just together with other guys. Um, we've lost that a lot in our Western society. We're very
Yeah.
atomized and just individualized. And if a guy ever reaches out to anyone, it's just yeah. Once he gets married, his wife becomes the only one he talks to about things.
Yeah.
But like no, friendships are important all throughout your adult life,
Hmm.
whether you're if married or still single. Like I still need guy friends. I still need time with buddies.
Yeah.
I can't be going to my wife with every thought I have, and my wife can't come to me with everything she's going through. She needs to have a
Hmm.
female friend she can vent to about things.
Yeah.
So it's like that helps me come back to her with, ah, good. All right, I got my needs fulfilled. then I can pour into her more now. Um, we of course there's mutuality. We meet each other's needs to a degree,
Of course.
but friendships are so vital. A brotherhood is so important,
Yeah.
and we're lacking that so much. There's so much male loneliness right now.
I hate to say this, but sometimes in Christian culture, like, certain things you don't want to talk about, like, or shameful things, and they're kind of like,
Yeah,
oh, that's bad, that's bad. This is good. So you almost hyper spiritualize and slap a Jesus sticker on some things instead of like
yeah,
just being real. This is who I am, which is exactly how God accepts us, which is beautiful. And unfortunately, a lot of my friendships I now know were surface. We're very, very surface level, and we're
mm,
not nothing like I have now. Yeah.
yeah. That's why. Even though I don't deal with, say, same-sex attraction, I love being around when I go to like these conferences for people who are leaving homosexual lifestyles and dealing with unwanted same-sex attraction because the masks are off. When I'm in that like these are my people. I might not have the same background of experiences that they have, but just being around, whether it's for me it's that, or if it's being around recovering addicts. Um, Sometimes it takes people who've been through crap and like they ditch the pretenses. I don't need to wear this
Mhm.
mask anymore.
Yeah.
That's my community. I like it. Sometimes it takes
Same.
that. It takes being around people who have been through some tough stuff because they're gonna have a little more of that I don't care attitude about how I appear. They'll wear their emotions on their sleeves. Their their crap is out there, and yet they're
Yeah.
working through it at the same time. They're not just like,
Exactly.
well, you better accept me the way I am, and this is just how this is my crap. No, they're like, I'm working through it, but they're
Exactly.
honest. There's got to be a relinquishing of having a perfect image. You got to
Yeah.
let
Oh
that
yeah.
go.
Yeah. What I've learned, dude, like I believe this. I firmly believe there are two types of people. There are people who know they're broken and people who don't know they're broken. Everybody's broken. Like, you know what I mean? Now, some of us obviously might, there could be levels
Varying
to this.
degrees.
Yeah, varying
Yeah.
degrees, but we're all broken. So, but when I'm playing live and then we're in a crowd of a few hundred or a thousand or whatever, it's a guarantee that there are people in there that are struggling.
Yeah.
And it's not always drugs. Often it's not that at all. And that doesn't even matter to me. I used to
Mhm.
feel called to like people in addiction. Now it's like you don't have to be in addiction to be
Yeah.
struggling, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, man, we've gotten approached by many people. We've seen many people get into trauma counseling over the years, and heard
Mm.
amazing testimonies and stories, and that just breeds more because then they're telling people, you know,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's just it's really cool, man. Yeah.
That's so cool. One of the things that's always been on my heart. So putting this out there in the internet ether. My wife might be embarrassed by this, but uh, it's always on my heart is to see us doing ministry together, where I'm doing like speaking engagements and counseling, addressing issues, and then she's leading in music. Because my wife is just so gifted
Oh wow,
musically, like, but been very discouraged. There was a time we were trying to start a music career, and I was we were writing music together. I have
amazing!
no music background, but
It's
there was a
amazing.
period of time after my wife was doing all the uh, singing competition shows. She went on X Factor and America's Got Talent, and she made it to like the second stage of X Factor. Um, but hit dead ends, and so she was getting discouraged. I'm like, stop with that stuff. Let's just make your own music. And so all their time I secretly was writing
Amazing.
songs for her, and I was terrified to share the songs with her
Yeah, it's
because
like you're
I
standing
can't.
naked in front of someone.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, and also
I
I'm not
know.
a singer. I'm like, oh gosh, try it. If you could hear how this song sounds in my head,
That's why you got to use
yeah.
AI.
But I know my wife well enough that I'm able to go into her head and write songs from her perspective based on
Amazing.
the life experiences that I know about from her. So I wrote all these songs that are like autobiographical, but then she wrote her own songs too. And so the first single we did was about her surviving trauma,
Wow.
and that's because we didn't want to write the songs that you typically hear on Christian radio. That Yeah, everything's resolved. There's some water theme, and then everything's washed away, and everything's resolved in 3 minutes. Like sometimes you just have to have a song where
Unfortunately,
you're
yeah.
left with that pain for a little
Every
bit, and
song has to have the word praise and joy, otherwise it doesn't count. You know what I mean?
something, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was my vision for the longest time, is like her doing music, or at least using her music that I can give to clients as
Yeah.
an encouragement. It's on the back burner. Might never even come back. She's very, very discouraged with how we were trying to go about it. Just some things fell through, and we weren't able to complete the album we are working on.
Yeah, it's tough.
So she got discouraged, but I'm always praying that we'll pick things back up. So
Well, if you ever need a studio, I know a good one. Let me know.
I will let you know. God willing, in the future. Just the very word music comes from the word muse, to think, to ponder, to move. God gave us music to help us reach into the deepest parts of our soul, to move us
Oh yeah.
emotionally, to move us to shift from one mood to another, or to really dig into a mood and really explore the depths of it, to get
Yeah,
to the
it's
bottom of it.
amazing. Like it vibrates your
So
soul. Yeah.
yeah, so to me, combining music with therapy just makes perfect sense.
Amazing.
It helps you really get into it. Like I've been able to walk in other people's shoes through music. I haven't been through so much trauma in my life, but I can listen to songs, and when I hear that person sharing their life, I'm right there in there. I cry when I listen to music all the time. There's certain artists where I just go right there. I'm like, I know what they're talking about. I might not have known it personally, but I can empathize in a certain way, and I get a picture of what it's like to be in someone else's shoes through their music.
Of
And that's what I experience when I'm doing therapy with people.
course.
So I love seeing that you're bringing those worlds together. And that's one of the things that was
Yeah.
as uh, interesting as the conference was. That was one of the really interesting highlights to me, how much music, whether it's the hip hop or the worship, other different musical styles, it was all integrated into this conference about mental
Yeah.
health and addiction recovery and
That was cool.
evangelism. Really like that.
I'm here today, facing all my pride, all the shame, the things I tried to hide, to lock away inside, but they still remain. I want to change, but even though I try, I can't escape the struggles in my mind. To leave them all behind, I need your grace. So it's you. So it's you I'm calling on, laying down the lies and falling on you and all your might. You're the one that I am drawing on. My father's pain passed on down the line, a wounded frame wounding me to stride. And though I'd never tried, I've done the same. So it's you. So it's you I'm calling on, laying down the lies and falling on you and all your might. You're the one that I am drawing on.
Yeah, man, and that is my heart, man. I mean, I believe, like you said, I firmly believe that, like, music can communicate a message like at a very deep level and like get into you in a way that someone could say certain words to you and it might move you a little or maybe even not, but if that same thing is in a melody through music, it just like permeates like a deeper level. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it just does something. And obviously music was God's idea, like without a shadow of a doubt,
Yeah.
So yeah, man. I mean, that's my two great three passions are the gospel, counseling, and music. Like the power of healing, through counseling and through all those things. You know what I mean? But the gospel, counseling, music, these are the three beat drums I'm always beating, you know, like that I think are, yeah. And that's what our goal is to really, really bring those, things together.
Yeah.
So,
People want to find out more about you or check out your music, where do they go?
yes. So you could find us pretty much on any platform under that where music is under JJ Fitz, just like you see on the screen, JJ space FITZ. YouTube, our channel is JJ Fitz Music. People could even email me if they want, jjfitzmusic@gmail.com. If they want to, book us or even donate or anything to the ministry or whatever. But yeah, man, we're out there all over the place. So
Do you have a certain region? Are you staying in the New Jersey area or you branch
now,
out far?
I mean, most of the stuff we do right now is the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania area. But I'm open to travel anywhere, and I have traveled to places in the past. So yeah, we're open to whatever. So
Yeah.
looking to really get out there, man, and just tell the story, man. I'm a storyteller. Like if you can't tell, I can go off on a
Sure.
tangent. Like
Of course.
that's part of who I am. Like I'm a born storyteller, and I just believe in bringing hope through that. I say this all the time, man, but I genuinely believe if someone who is as broken as me can heal, anyone can heal.
Yeah.
Like I really believe it.
Praise God, man.
So yeah, man, that's it.
Well, John, thank you so much for being on the
My
show
pleasure. Thank you
and
for having
sharing
me.
your story. Thanks for being authentic as much as you could here
Yeah.
and sharing your story because it is a story of how much hope there is in Christ and whether it's through supernatural touches from Him or through the natural means of what we learn from studying the brain and the mind and working on trauma reprocessing. It all
Mm-hmm.
comes together. And so
Yeah.
appreciate you promoting
My
both.
pleasure.
As I always say at the end, please know that Jesus loves you freely, fully, faithfully, and fruitfully.